Now on display within sight of the Rockies, works by an artist perhaps best known for his water lilies. Barry Petersen is our guide.
Putting together a Monet exhibit with more than 120 works from 80 lenders in 15 countries is best done by a lifelong Monet fan. And Christoph Heinrich qualifies.
It's like Christmas and every other holiday at the same time.
Heinrich is director of the Denver Art Museum, now home to the country's largest Monet exhibit in more than 2 decades. And for those who love Claude Monet, the show is like visiting old friends.
Monet is a household name, not just in the art world, but in the world. Why do you think that is?
Monet is a painter that works on many different levels. It's not like the Mona Lisa. There you have a figure that sits in front of a backdrop. The water lily ponds, you have the energy, definitely not in the center. You have almost this whole web that spreads out over the canvas. It's not a thing in front of a backdrop.
Born in Paris in 1840, he began drawing caricatures as a teenager, picking up a paintbrush not long after. His work was often shaped by events in his life. In 1870, afraid he'd be called up for the Franco-Prussian War, he fled to England, eventually leading to a years-long love affair with, of all things, the diffuse light of smog.
He's waiting for the moment when everybody turns on their stoves, because then the pollution is the highest.
If you were an art dealer and Monet came to you and said, hey, I'm going to go paint a bunch of smog in London, you probably would have laughed at his face.
I think his art dealers at one point tried to tell him what to paint. He couldn't care less.
But he cared when his first works, now considered masterpieces, were rejected. Depressed and destitute, he even tried to commit suicide. Death and sadness also affect his painting. In 1879, Camille, his first wife and his muse, died.
And he pretty much stops painting people. I think he's really more interested in what's happening in the nature, and he's interested in the light.
And color, finding it in surprising places, even in white.
There's this dark blue and the pink and the apricot color here in the sky, and there's even a little sulfuric yellow in this. I mean, it doesn't tell a big story, but it tells the story what light of a late afternoon does to a landscape in the winter.
That fascination with light is seen in his series of subjects, the haystacks, the poplars, and of course, the water lilies in his garden. He painted them hundreds of times over 3 decades.
It's one of the first paintings, or one of the first series of the water lily pond and the Japanese bridge.
And as he ages, see how his art changes.
Well, let's take 5 steps and go roughly 20 years later. Is the bridge still in there somewhere?
I think you can see the bridge. This is the railing. And then you have, of course, all the vegetation that is growing around it. You see the pond. You see something that could be a yellow water lily there, but it's incredibly free and loosely painted.
Some argue that paintings like this, made in the last decade of his life, make Monet as influential to modern art as he was to Impressionism.
Not having any preconceived, I'm starting here and I'm ending there, but rather letting the paint itself tell him where he was going. I think that's a very modern idea.
Curator Gloria Groom is at the Art Institute of Chicago, home to its own Monet exhibit, opening this spring.
These large, immersive, amazing, color-filled paintings were very attractive to Helen Frankenthaler, to Ellsworth Kelly. These are artists who paint big, who paint gestural. When you think about even abstract expressionism, you know, this idea that you're not seeing a subject per se, but you are seeing something in the paint itself. Those are the gifts he gave to the next generations.
Claude Monet died at age 86 after finding fame and fortune, and both continue to this day.
We start the bidding on this work at $45 million.
Last May, one of his paintings brought more than $110 million, a record-breaking sale for an Impressionist work.
He definitely deserves to be recognized as one of the most innovative painters, standing with one leg in the 19th century, but really with the other leg in the modern age.